Dear guests, welcome back to the Istanbul Education Summit. Over the last couple of hours, we've heard expert discussions on social justice, voices from our youth, and how to create a sustainable school culture. I'd now like to present to you the next part of our forum, the keynote speech. And the speaker of the day is Professor of Learning and Artificial Intelligence at UCL Institute of Education and University College of London, Mutlu Cukurova. Thank you so much, Professor, for being with us on the program. Over to you.
And dear colleagues, many thanks for this kind introduction and the honorable invitation. It is an absolute pleasure and a privilege for me to share my ideas here at the 4th Istanbul Education Summit organized by the Turkish Maarif Foundation. As it might be apparent from my title, my particular area of expertise is in artificial intelligence and human learning. So not surprisingly, I will be speaking about AI and education today. However, aligned with the theme of the conference, I will particularly focus on AI's potential to help us address education's grand challenges such as fairness, equity, and sustainability, raising the core question of can AI address grand challenges of education? As most of us by now must be familiar with them, there have been significant developments in AI in recent years due to recent advancements in generative pre-trained transformers, so-called GPTs. These are models that are pre-trained on a very large-scale dataset of web-crawled information using attention mechanisms and multi-layer perceptrons that are then further fine-tuned with approaches like reinforcement learning with human feedback in order to be able to provide particular use cases. These are very powerful models that are impressive in their performance in content generation, and they can interact with humans through natural language processing using multiple modalities of data, such as audio and images. Due to these rapid technological advancements, societies across the globe have been grappling with complex questions about the future of education. On the one hand, AI solutions are considered as strategic investments to support student learning and teacher practices. At the same time, AI's use in education threatens human agency, risks privacy and security protection of teachers and learners, and it has already been deepening some of the long-standing systemic inequalities and exclusion in our education systems. This appears to be a pivotal moment for all of us as scientists, practitioners, and policymakers to envision a future of education that is aligned with our societal values and ensure that AI is used responsibly to achieve this vision. But where do we start from? What is the core of these significant changes AI brings? And how do we make sense of them in a way that we do not have to constantly try and catch up with the change, but we guide the direction of the change proactively? As we navigate the rapidly evolving landscape of technology, we are witnessing artificial intelligence to accomplish tasks once thought to be uniquely human. This progress prompts both excitement and introspection, since every time we advance in AI so that it does something we used to think is unique to humans, we cut something away from us. Don't get me wrong, this statement is not just an observation, but it is a significant challenge, a call to reassess what it means to be a human in a world where machines are increasingly emulating our capabilities. What is the core of humanness and humanity that we cannot afford to cut away anymore? As Neil Lawrence puts it, what is the atomic human? In education, this reflection becomes even more critical because the answers to this question are also likely to be the answers to the question of what we should be educating people about. As we integrate AI to try and tackle grand challenges in education, we must safeguard the essence of our humanity. Beyond the automation of certain teacher tasks and the amplification of certain learning processes for students in education, there lies something deeper to consider in discussions of AI in education. Our capacities for empathy, ethical and moral reasoning, human connection, values, and virtues. These are the elements that define the core of us as humans and the ones we must aim to nurture in our education systems. Throughout the last 2 days, I was very pleased to hear, as evidenced by the good practice case studies presented as part of this summit, virtuous education is at the heart of Maarif's Foundation's schools. So, where do these differences in AI and humans stem from? Well, AI does not think like a human, nor does it process emotions, moral reasoning, or context in the same way. A simple yet powerful metaphor to help us frame this concept is that just as cars are not faster horses, AI tools are not smarter humans. Cars represented an entirely new paradigm and did not replace horses outright. Instead, they fundamentally reshaped how we think about distance, travel, and connection, with profound social and ethical implications on the Earth's sustainability, for instance. Similarly, AI tools don't mimic human intelligence as much as they redefine what intelligence can look like in a specific context. AI is a designed intelligence built to process data, identify patterns, and generate solutions based on tunable parameters. All of these without any intrinsic understanding of the problems it addresses and the implications of the proposed solutions on the societal and ethical values. Human intelligence, on the other hand, is an emergent intelligence, which is shaped by millions of years of evolution and punctuated by groundbreaking advancements that make humans uniquely capable beings. The first breakthrough of biological organisms was steering, which enabled organisms to navigate their environments by categorizing stimuli as good or bad, moving towards stimuli and away from harm. Then this was followed by reinforcing, where behaviors leading to positive outcomes were repeated and those resulting in negative outcomes were avoided. This is the foundation for learning through trial and error, for instance. The third major leap was simulating, which enabled by the neocortex, allowing for internal mental models of reality. This empowered mammals to imagine, plan, and replay past events, learning counterfactual by considering alternative explanations of particular choices. Next came mentalizing, or the ability to model one's own or others' minds, allowing primates to anticipate future needs, understand intentions, and learn through observations. Finally, the development of speaking transformed humanity, enabling individuals to name, structure, and share thoughts. This allowed knowledge and wisdom to accumulate across generations and cultures, propelling human progress far beyond what any capable individual could achieve. These advancements have made humans uniquely capable beings, as well as shaping our limitations and vulnerabilities that are the products of generations of value, virtue, and wisdom of our ancestors. Now, many people in the audience might be thinking that I'm a teacher, an educator, or a policymaker. Why is he telling us these? Why do we even need to know the details of how AI works, how human brain works, and how it differs from human intelligence? But it matters, and it matters hugely, because when we think about AI and human intelligence in these deeper terms, it becomes quite clear that human intelligence is a different kind of intelligence than artificial intelligence. And this is not a competition per se. Humans are very good at many things that today's AI is still poor at. And AI is good at some others. We can also not say that humans are more intelligent than humans per se, or vice versa. We are just differently abled. So the first major point I would like to make as part of this talk is that this unique capacity of humans, shaped by generations of accumulated wisdom, values, and virtues, should be central to education systems, recognizing both our strengths and vulnerabilities as the foundation of our progress. The recognition of differences between human intelligence and AI can also help us better conceptualize AI in educational practice. In this sense, for instance, AI can be conceptualized to externalize, be internalized, or extend human cognition in education. As the first conceptualization goes, in the externalization of cognition, certain human tasks are well-defined, modeled, and replaced by AI as a tool. In the second conceptualization, AI models can be used to help humans change their representation of thought through the internalization of these models. And at last, AI models can be used to extend human cognition as part of a tightly coupled human-AI systems, in which the emergent intelligence is expected to be synergistic, which means that the expected intelligence should be more than the sum of each agent's intelligence. If we try to map these conceptualizations on the coordinates of Schneiderman's and consider more traditional educational technologies, perhaps most of the traditional educational technology could be considered as low allowance for human agency and low automation technologies. With the initial proliferation of AI in education, on the other hand, many researchers had this very ambitious goal of creating systems that are as perceptive as human educators through the automation of certain tutoring behaviors. This has led significant developments in intelligent tutoring systems, and I can see many similar hypes are today surrounding foundational models with their ability to automate various human tasks for us. For instance, if we look at how teachers are actually using AI in their practice, in general, these models are considered as better search engines for information retrieval for teachers. They are an opportunity to ask their questions directly to the model rather than searching for information through a web search. In addition, they provide opportunities for teachers to use them for generating lesson plans, creating examples and applications, generating questions for various purposes in their educational practice. However, it is very interesting to note that although most teachers agree about the potential of AI models for generating some content initially, very few of them actually think that it can help them improve student outcomes when it comes to more complicated teaching tasks, such as generating feedback. So it is a very interesting question to ponder upon. What teaching tasks can the potential of AI be used to be automated so that they can be replaced with AI? There are indeed in the history certain tasks in various professions that have been automated with the help of industrialization, machines, or AI. These tasks often were the ones that involved repetitive, scripted, and highly structured interactions, leaving little room for creativity, personalization, or meaningful human connection. Automating such tasks with AI not only ensured consistency and efficiency, but also were potentially more humane solutions for the individuals performing them. Take, for instance, call operators who are currently delivered by humans. These humans' role often involves following a very strictly written script, delivering predefined replies, and adhering to very strict protocols of what can be said and what cannot be said. In essence, this work mimics the precision of a machine, yet it can be monotonous, emotionally taxing, and devoid of personal fulfillment. Automating such interactions with AI can indeed free human operators from repetitive tasks, enabling them to focus on roles that require qualities that are uniquely human and professionally a lot more rewarding. But indeed, very few aspects of professional teachers' job can be categorized in this space. For instance, we have been investigating this potential looking at the use of AI-generated synthetic media to be able to see to what extent AI-generated synthetic media can be used to replace teachers' task of recording their lectures or teaching sessions and putting them online. This is indeed a very time-intensive task for a teacher, which does not necessarily leverage the core strengths of a human teacher. In our experimental research, we have explored the potential and showed no statistically significant difference in terms of the students' learning gains and learner experience when students are learning from a recorded human lecture versus learning from the same lecture content delivered by an AI-generated synthetic media. This suggests that for tasks like direct instruction for content delivery, where the primary focus is on transmitting information, AI-generated synthetic media can indeed perform just as well. Perhaps the automation of such small tasks of online video creation with AI can be fully automated and would not necessarily diminish the teaching profession. Rather, it might liberate educators from routine mechanized duties, allowing them to concentrate on the aspects of teaching that are truly defining their role, such as mentoring, inspiring, human flourishing of their students. Yet, even if we can automate some small aspects of a teaching tasks, for improved teacher productivity in order to be able to save time, how do we do this automation is also an extremely important point to consider. Although currently most accessible tools used for such automation are large-scale commercial AI tools, the use of such tools have significant issues, especially when considered within the context of creating a fair and equitable society for a sustainable future. First of all, cost and licensing fees of these tools make the accessibility of these tools in underfunded schools and marginalized communities extremely difficult, exacerbating the existing inequalities. Furthermore, privacy and data security concerns arise as many of these tools require sensitive student and teacher data to be shared with the commercial organizations. Institutions, researchers, and practitioners frequently lack control and customization of these commercial AI tools because these tools are essentially designed to serve broad market needs rather than the unique needs of a specific educational context. Additionally, these tools rely heavily on connectivity, creating significant barriers for students and schools in regions with limited or unreliable internet access. The lack of transparency and explainability in the decision-making processes of these AI systems also raises concerns about the accountability and fairness. Furthermore, the environmental impact of these large-scale AI tools, given the substantial energy demands of training and running these large language models, stands in opposition to the principle of sustainability. In order to be able to mitigate some of these issues to a certain extent at least, for instance, in academic research, we have been focusing on building relatively small-scale language models for teachers' question generation that performance-wise can be comparable to large commercial models, but can be run in resource-low contexts and countries. Now, this is a rather technical research, but it is motivated by a grand challenge of education. And this line of technical work is essential to ensure that AI supports rather than hinders equity, fairness, and sustainability in education. So small number of teaching tasks might indeed benefit from AI automation for productivity gains, but aiming to achieve these with open source academic technical solutions might be much more aligned with our own societal values rather than relying upon commercial solutions only. On the other hand, if we look at the automation conceptualization from the student's point of view, it is important to remember that productivity gains are not necessarily the primary goal for students for engaging in a learning activity. When students are engaged in a task, learning from the experience of engaging in the activity is the main goal, rather than the completion of the task per se. Here, for instance, you can see the results of a recent study looking at the potential of GPT-4 to be able to answer exam questions in all departments of a top EU university. And their results show that most exam questions of this particular university can be well answered with GPT-4. So any student who has access to this tool can fill in the answers to exam questions, get a good degree from the university with almost no effort. So in this scenario, although students would gain productivity of task completion with AI, they would not necessarily learn anything from their experience in the university. Therefore, for student-facing AI, we need to fine-tune these models so that they behave differently than off-the-shelf commercial models that are designed and developed to satisfy customers. For instance, here you can see the response of a ChatGPT model to the student statement of "I want to write an essay on multimodal learning analytics." And here is the response of an AI tool that is built with fine-tuned AI models to behave more like an essay support tutor. As you can see in the ChatGPT example, it almost entirely writes the essay for the student, providing all the responses. Whereas in the second case, it guides students to come up with their own ideas and guide them through the essay writing process. Educational value of the ChatGPT as it is likely to be very limited for the students to improve their learning processes. Even though, with the help of ChatGPT, a student can generate a strong essay and submit it as part of their assessment. I find it fascinating that although most skills and competencies that we are interested in education are indeed process-driven, oftentimes, these are only evaluated looking at the outcomes of these skills rather than the process in which these outcomes are produced. As AI tools like ChatGPT become more ubiquitous, we need to move towards innovations in our assessment structures that encourage process evaluations rather than looking at the outcome evaluations only. Essay writing is a great example, because essay writing is most often assigned to students not because the resulting essay has much value to us, but because the process of writing an essay teaches crucial skills to our students. Regulation of one's own behaviors to engage in a topic, researching a topic, judging claims accuracy, synthesizing knowledge, and expressing them in a clear, coherent, and persuasive manner. These are the skills that should be at the heart of the assessment of essays, not only looking at the final product of what is produced, particularly considering the ease of creating such products with AI. And this is the kind of example of innovation that we need in our education systems in order to avoid negative repercussions of AI in education. If we use bespoke essay support systems like the one that I have just exemplified early on, we can actually start investigating students' essay writing process because it gives us significant opportunities to analyze students' interactions with AI at ease, so that we can use this interaction data to be able to provide formative feedback to our students. In my own teaching at UCL, I also have essay submissions as assignments. But for the last few years, in addition to traditional content feedback that I would provide only on the final submissions, we provide feedback on students' essay writing process. And although such interventions might have limited value to those students who are already highly motivated, who are already self-regulated to monitor and control their learning behaviors, they appear to have significantly boosting the engagement and performance of those students who are struggling to stay motivated and who were initially predicted to fail. Therefore, such interventions to support the process of learning can indeed lead to more equitable interventions for students and help us potentially bridge the gap between high achievers and low achievers in classrooms to potentially lead towards more equity at a micro level in education. Of course, there is currently significant interest and investment coming from the leading AI companies on developing student-facing AI tutors. In a recent interview, for instance, ChatGPT creator OpenAI's CEO Sam Altman said that they are supporting 2 people working on a summer project to finally make the AI tutor to deliver Montessori-level reinvention for how people learn things. Now, I very much appreciate the ambition, but to me, 2 people working on a summer project as part of a commercial company to make an AI tutor for Montessori level reinvention of how people learn things is naive at best and dangerous for the future of education at worst. From the AI in education literature, we already have many good examples of student-facing AI tools that adapt to the student's individual needs of mastery and tailor the content, pacing, and feedback according to these mastery levels. And such tutoring systems have been studied in depth for decades, providing significant evidence that they can be used for various domains and knowledge acquisition tasks if implemented appropriately. There is indeed good evidence, both at the individual studies levels, but also at the meta-reviews levels, that these systems can achieve significant results in the delivery of content acquisition, particularly for the subjects of maths, language learning, and algebra, 3 most frequently studied subjects in AI in education. Now, considering these systems are not necessarily new, and the evidence about their effectiveness is not necessarily new, one really important question to ponder for all of us is why they have not been prevalent in mainstream education across most parts of the world. Well, first of all, there are numerous factors influencing the adoption and use of AI in education that are much broader than the effectiveness of the specific AI technology in controlled experimental evaluations. These include, but are not limited to, policy landscape, institutional governance, as discussed in previous panel, school culture, technological infrastructure, and social support mechanisms provided to teachers. In our own recent work, for instance, looking at the factors influencing teachers' AI adoption in schools with over 800 school teachers, we observed that although AI tools-related factors were indeed important, they were not necessarily the most important factors influencing the AI's engagement with teachers. Not generating any additional workload to teachers, teachers' knowledge of and confidence in using AI, increasing teacher ownership, generating support mechanisms for help when needed, and assuring that ethical issues of AI are minimized were also essential for the potential adoption of AI in schools. So we should never forget that the tools that we are working on are not only closed engineering systems, but are part of a large socio-technical ecosystem. For AI to potentially address any grand challenges of education, there are multiple ecosystem-level factors that should be addressed in advance to be able to enable AI to make expected change. Second, evidence of impact that is observed in research studies tend to disappear once the facilitation and orchestration of the technology is left to the hands of real-world teachers rather than being facilitated by expert researchers. These results highlight the importance of improving teachers' competencies and confidence in using AI for any kind of AI intervention to make real-world impact. Key distinctions between AI and traditional ICT tools necessitate the definition of a specific set of competencies for teachers. This demands a stronger emphasis on competencies that are related to human agency, ethical considerations, critical thinking, and human-centered pedagogical design in human-AI interactions. This is not only about providing basic foundational knowledge and application skills of a particular tool to teacher. This is, for instance, the final version of the AI Competency Framework for Teachers from UNESCO that I had the opportunity of working on. And this is an entirely free resource for all teachers across the globe to be utilized. And as can be seen, the AI techniques and applications is only one of a much bigger, holistic 5 aspects of AI competency training that is required for AI to make impact in real world. For AI to potentially address any grand challenges of education, we should support teachers' AI competency development a lot more holistically than it is currently considered and conceptualized. Third, education with AI in a pedagogy for one approach, which is sometimes argued to dehumanize education and learning, might actually be detrimental for the future of education. When AI in education is indeed considered in this narrow sense as lonely individual students working on their own with an AI system, this might lead learners to prioritize information gathering and declarative knowledge acquisition over tacit knowledge and wisdom, which comes through rich experiences in the real world with others. Particularly if these systems are considered as a replacement for human interactions with each other, then the knowledge that comes through the experience and practical acquisition of an embodied skill can be replaced with tokens of representations that are far off the actual construct that we are interested in. Learning is not only about absorbing education information, and education is not only about learning. On the other hand, these technologies can also be used as opportunities for increasing students' interactions with adults and more abled peers as part of different instructional strategies. In some affluent parts of the world, already some students, rather than spending 8 hours of their classroom time listening to a teacher, are spending 2 hours of their teaching time working with an AI tutor to be able to improve their content acquisition, and then spend the rest of their school day developing those valuable lifelong learning skills through interactions with peers and adult mentors in the real world, working on real world problems. So the success of the AI in education is not only dependent upon the AI tools, but based on the particular learning design and the instructional design in which they are embedded. For AI to potentially address any grand challenges of education, the instructional strategies in which AI is embedded should be designed keeping the grand challenges of equity, fairness, and sustainability in mind. But such approaches would require significant innovation in our education systems, including our assessment structures. As in the case I mentioned, if students spend 6 hours of their school time developing lifelong learning skills, then we should be able to focus in our assessment on these lifelong learning skills. AI applications can indeed be detrimental if they are used to automate poor practices of existing education systems. Unfortunately, when we speak with students and teachers in the UK, we observe that most of them expect AI to automate the current assessment requirements for them. So in a very dystopian future, we might end up in a situation where students use AI to write their essay submissions, teachers use AI to assess these submissions, and although AI is heavily used in schools, nobody actually learns and nobody actually gets the satisfaction of flourishing a person. While affluent parts of the world might have the resources to adopt instructional strategies that increase meaningful human interaction even after AI is integrated in schools, the same cannot be said for many under-resourced schools in countries where the resources are limited. For these schools, the financial and logistic constraints might push them to adopt AI primarily to save time and reduce costs, oftentimes resulting in the automation of poor teaching practices. Such decisions risk exacerbating existing inequalities in education systems, as affluent schools use AI to enhance pedagogical practices and fosters skills that are associated with critical thinking, collaboration, lifelong learning in general, while less privileged schools are forced into using AI in ways that prioritize efficiency over quality. This disparity underscores the importance of equity-focused policies and global initiatives to ensure that AI in education benefits all learners, regardless of their socioeconomic context. In this thread, there are many lessons that we can learn looking at the literature of MOOCs, because similar results were also observed in the delivery and application of massive open online courses. Although MOOCs were initially created to democratize education, if we look at their empirical impact, more developed countries benefit from them the most. Here, in the graph, you can see the high completion rate in more developed countries, which further increases the gap and inequality in education systems. Furthermore, a significant amount of work is still needed to address the socio-psychological barriers to the use of AI in education. Students need to be motivated enough to engage with AI tools in the first place. Yet if we look at the impact, only about 5% of the school populations can generate students who can manage their engagement with similar educational interventions long enough to get statistically significant benefits. In addition, teachers tend to have confirmation biases. They tend to have unrealistic expectations from AI in education. A few years ago, for instance, in my own lab, we have been looking at the research that when people are presented with content that is framed as coming from AI, they were judging it as less credible and less trustworthy, therefore engaging with it less compared to the same content framed as coming from different resources. Now, similar results are emerging. When AI-generated content or feedback is presented to students, they tend to judge its quality lower and trust it less if they know that this is coming from AI. There is indeed emerging work focusing on how do we actually motivate students to engage with these AI tools and gain the trust of teachers and learners in AI in education, but considerably more research is still needed in this space to optimize end users' trust in AI in education. This is a necessary yet not sufficient condition for AI to potentially address any of the grand challenges that we have in education. Therefore, based on the lessons learned from decades-long research in AI in education, I assert that AI tools alone are very unlikely to address any of the grand challenges of education. And I say very unlikely, putting my doubtful researcher hat on. But I can be more confident to say that despite some expectations, it is not going to happen as a result of two people working on a summer project within a commercial company. The change in education systems is likely to happen gradually. And I mean you and I, all of us as key stakeholders, perhaps can steer the direction of change towards a particular direction that is intentional, evidence-informed, and human-centered so that there is a potential for any of these interventions to address our grand challenges. As you might have noticed, in this talk, I have been mainly talking about this conceptualization of AI as a tool for the automation of certain tasks, since this is the focus of overwhelming majority of our research and practice. However, AI in education can also be conceptualized as computational models of complex learning phenomena for humans to internalize and change their representation of thought. These lead to relatively low automation systems that allow high human agency and control. This conceptualization can be particularly valuable for the support of open-ended constructivist learning activities in which most of the learning goals are associated with students' social and emotional learning. In my opinion, AI that directly intervenes with such learning experiences is extremely problematic on multiple fronts. First of all, there is the critical issue that relates to the potential threat to human agency. AI tools may inadvertently shift control and decision-making away from teachers and learners, undermining their autonomy in the learning process. Additionally, the accuracy of predictions in social contexts remain still questionable, as AI often struggles to interpret the complex, dynamic, and relational nature of human interactions in learning environments. Another major challenge is the normativity issue, where AI lacks the capacity to decide what is inherently good or bad in a multifaceted social learning situation, which often involves context-specific values and virtues that defy universal standards. These challenges are further compounded by well-documented concerns surrounding algorithmic bias, where AI systems can perpetuate or exacerbate inequalities based on biased training data, the lack of transparency in AI decision-making processes, which also creates significant barriers to understanding and trust, and the accountability of AI tools, which is a significant issue as it is often unclear who is responsible from the outcomes of an AI-driven intervention. Is it developers, educators, or governments or institutions? Before such important questions are answered, if they are ever to be answered to a sufficient degree, maybe AI should not be used directly to intervene in social and emotional learning activities. On the other hand, if we take the second conceptualization of AI as computational models for humans to internalize, maybe AI can be considered as an opportunity to describe the lived learning experiences in a more precise manner. This is so much more appropriate than aiming for the potentially impossible task of prescribing acts for the future based on predictions in a complex social learning processes. Seymour Papert famously noted, "You cannot think about thinking without thinking about something." And in this sense, AI models can actually be objects to think about human learning. And in our work, whenever we try to utilize AI in a social constructivist learning environment, we tend to take a very modest goal of using these computational models to describe students' learning behaviors and processes in a more detailed manner, to be able to present these models back to humans and students and teachers in order to be able to make their lived experiences more visible to them, so that this can create an awareness. This leaves us with the last corner of high automation and high human agency, the corner of human cognition being extended with AI in tightly coupled human-AI hybrid intelligence systems. I have not really talked about this corner. I didn't have much time to talk about it anyway, but also because most of the current empirical evidence indicate that we are yet to see substantial work in this front in AI in education. At best, the current complementarity paradigm in which we are operating is to make a better match of what humans can do and what AI can do with the problems to be tackled to achieve productivity gains rather than making humans more intelligent. More commonly, for any given job, we tend to give up our agency to AI to complete a task for us, which in turn is expected to improve the performance of the specific task completed. We must be judicious in selecting the tasks we delegate to AI, as there are very few aspects of education that is prone to such automation. And over-reliance and dependency on AI could actually lead to the atrophy of critical competencies and values in the long term. On the other hand, for AI models that are internalized by humans, the goal of the model would be to fade away in scaffolds as humans' competence at the task that is modeled develops through their interaction with the model. At last, extending human cognition for intelligence augmentation in tightly coupled human-AI hybrid intelligence systems would actually require AI to be a synergistic superstructure on top of the human intelligence in a way as the interaction with AI tool increases, human competence at the task being modeled would also increase. Currently, our best and state-of-the-field AI models lack a theory of mind in order to be able to interact with humans that would take human values into account. Without the development of such AI models, interacting with AIs are very likely to have significant long-term implications on human capabilities and human values. Our interactions with AI systems are influencing us, and we are currently lacking long-term impact studies of these interventions on our core competencies and our core values. Rushing into any kind of scaled implementations that would replace human interactions without the long-term impact studies is potentially the greatest mistake that education systems can make. Let us do not forget that research in AI began as an attempt to understand our own intelligence. its atrophy, its augmentation, and amplification. Which goal are you striving for as a teacher, as a researcher, as a policymaker? And what virtues are you trying to flourish in your students, in your research participants, in your government? What is it with regards to the potential atrophy that we can accept? When is it acceptable to entrust core cognitive competencies to an AI tool? And when might this pose too great a risk? What are the long-term implications of the tools that we are developing and using on our own cognitive competence and our own virtues? As researchers, practitioners, and policymakers, we must exercise wisdom in answering such questions and also consider alternative conceptualizations of AI rather than fully automating to cut something away from us. Applications of AI in education and the visionary direction in which the future is envisaged should be informed by strategic evidence that comes from research, as well as the multi-stakeholder dialogues that are led by us as key stakeholders of education. I started this talk with a question, and let me conclude it with the same one. What is the core of humanness and humanity that we cannot cut away from us anymore, so that we can position this core at the heart of all our education systems in order to be able to flourish this core? This is, my esteemed colleagues and participants, indeed the question after all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Cukurova. I'd like to extend my gratitude, and it was a pleasure listening to you at the Istanbul Education Summit. It is, of course, of crucial importance that educators learn how to utilize AI in the right manner to support their execution of work in a way that will ultimately create a better learning experience for both the students and a teaching experience for the educators as well. Once again, thank you for being with us.